CardGamesTV1 podcast episode 12, the evolution of my playstyles, and anything else I could think of talking about. So I was just thinking on my way to work, different things, like why I don't play super combos and stuff like that. Most people already know, should know since I already made a couple of videos about it before. It's a preference, I got into the point where super combos are optional, not mandatory. For everybody else, there's MasterCard, right? So a lot of people still want to play combos. I mean, super combos, which I'm not against. Do what you want. If it works, it works. Whatever, right? To each their own. But for me, it's optional. It's something I could use, not something that I need to use. And then the fact that it's just dedicated combo, right? All it is just a combo. That's it. It's just dedicated. You dedicate space in your deck for something you plan to combo. Here's the thing for me, though. I'm not a fan of comboing. Since the beginning of the game, I've never been a fan of the idea of comboing, right? Giving up something. I don't like the idea of charging energy. But that's for a different conversation, right? But I don't like the idea of charging energy, right? Because you're giving up something. I'm used to it since I played Duel Masters before, so I'm used to the whole idea of charging, using a card that I could have played, using it as energy instead, which makes it a lot like Magic, right? Paying for the ability to play stuff. So you can only play but so many cards in a single turn or at all because of, the energy you have. But this is a more guaranteed way to have energy because all you have to do is make sure you use a card every turn for energy. But you can obviously quickly run out of gas, as they say, right? When you're comboing, when you're charging energy, right? When you're treating your cards like that, when you're using your cards to defend or to even use it to combo, so you can make your attack strong to try to do your point of damage, right? And you're using it as energy. Right there, you're giving up resources. You're giving up hand backs. You can say you're utilizing your resources, but yeah, you're utilizing ways that they are not optimal. Using a card as energy is not the optimal way of using the card. Playing the card is the optimal way, right? So stuff like that, matters. Some cards make sense. Like I've always had the mindset that one of the reasons why I play 4 copies of every card, and I don't like the whole idea of using less than 4 copies of a card, is because the 4th card is designated for energy. I know I'm going to charge energy. So anytime I have 2 copies of a card in my hand, I charge 1. Right? That's the one dedicated. Out of the 4 copies of that card, that's the one that's dedicated for energy. The remaining 3 is what I'm going to play the game with. Sometimes I might charge 2 copies. Shit happens. Right? But, that's why with me having multiple unisons in a deck, some people have probably been playing a lot of copies of unisons, and they try to use the argument that, oh, but you're only going to play 1 at a time or throughout the game anyways. Why so many? It's because a lot of times I use them as energy, so they become dedicated energy sources. Yes, I can only have 1 unison at a time, but then there's other factors. The fact that I can put a unison, that's the same copy of a unison I already have in play, under it to give it a marker, that's another reason to have multiple copies, because that marker system, it's nice that they have that as an option, that I can use the extra copy to give a marker to something that's, to a unison that's already in play. So that's another reason to pay multiple copies. The reason I have like 3 different unisons and 4 copies of each, which I end up having about between 9 to 12, depending on which ratio I'm using, between 9 to 12 unisons in a single deck. A lot of people go, oh, that's a lot of unisons. Like, yeah, but that means they're more often than not going to be charged as energy. One, they don't have combo power, so there's no point in keeping them in my hand, for long periods of time. At some point, I'm going to have to charge them to keep battle cards in my hands that I could potentially combo with. That's if I'm going to combo, which I mentioned earlier, not really a fan of doing. because I'm just literally throwing away cards, literally throwing away something I could have used. So I prefer not to combo. So then I'm always trying to find ways to circumvent that. So that's why I came up with the concept of the endless combo concept, right? The idea of using cards that mimic that gives me the ability to combo without actually combo. Because, you know, comboing, like I said before, is you literally throwing away cards just so you can get a certain result, which is power increase or decrease the ability of your opponent dealing damage, you know, by out comboing. So that's why the 4-star ball, 4-star Dragon Ball, along with the 1-drop Kid, 1-drop Goku Adventure, something I forget his name right now. That little engine is nice because it's a 1-drop, you know, and it's black, right? So you can play it in any deck, so you don't need a specific color in order to play it. It works better with Black Leader, of course, because you get an extra benefit out of it. But the fact that you can play it for 1 energy in any deck, it has an activating that lets you get the 4-star ball from your deck or drop area to your hand. That makes it reusable. The most important part is that it can get it from the drop area, because that's where you get the reusability, the ability to use it. And the 4-star ball can be used to combo, right? It's an active battle ability. You can, for free, play and get a 5k boost. If you use it with a skillless battle card, then it gets a 10k boost. So it becomes a super combo in a sense. And it's a reusable super combo in that regards. It's a reusable combo card, 5k combo card. And it's still 0, right? So it's reusable. So you have a reusable engine that you can use over and over again. So you can use it defensively and offensively. Typically, the best way to use it is defensively, because, you know, you typically don't want to waste comboing for attacks unless it's your final attack, right? When you're going for game, then you combo your whole hand off to go for game, right? That's reasonable. That's understandable. Want to guarantee that attack goes through. But more often than not, when you combo defensively. So, which means super combos typically get used more so for defense than anything else. And it's like, well, since I'm not really a fan of comboing defensively at all, like, you know, it's something I gotta do, but I'd rather not be in that position where I'd rather negate the attack, block the attack, make sure my opponent just doesn't attack at all, like with a topo, you know, some type of floodgate negate or something that says you can't attack me at all. You know what I mean? I prefer shit like that than, you know, super combos and, you know, having other cards that I use specifically just to combo defensively or something. Like, that's too much. I try to simplify the game. That's another thing, is I like to simplify things. You know, for example, the way I play the game is that I'm trying to beat the game, not my opponent, not whatever deck I'm going up against. So I never have issues with certain decks. Like, I be seeing people online, you know, to be talking and be like, oh man, this deck is this and this deck that, and how they be talking about they have trouble with certain decks and how they hate certain matchups. There's only like one deck I could say that I hate per se, but I hate it in a respectful way. I hate it because it's like, I respect Soul Striker. Like, I'm a fan of the card. So I hate playing against it because it's so good, but, you know, it's out of respect. It's like, it's so good, that's why I hate it. Right? Playing against it because it's so good. It makes the game too easy for my opponent. But at the same time, it's like, so be it. I like a challenge. So, you know, it's a love-hate thing. So I respect it, and that's the most important thing. So, like, Soul Striker, or anyone who uses Soul Striker, you know, by default makes you like my rival, as it were. But other than that, nothing really matters. Like, I don't care what my opponent's playing. Like, it has to be, like, the game is so simple and straightforward. A lot of people complicate this game more than it should be complicated. They make it more complicated. And there's many reasons for it. I'm not going to get into that, of why people try to make this game sound more complicated than it really is. But it's not. It's relatively easy, and the main thing is that I make sure that it's easy. It's easy for me, you know what I mean? Like quantum physics, I'll use this as an example. Quantum physics, or rocket science, is simple for anybody who knows quantum physics or rocket science, right? But somebody in kindergarten is not going to understand, quantum physics, right? Rocket science. Shit, somebody in high school. Shit, somebody who just went to college probably won't even understand. So you get my point? So, I understand the basics of this game, the simplicity of this game, how easy it is. I've said it many times before, so I'm going to repeat it again in this video, obviously. The first 4 damage is the easiest to do. The reason why is because your opponent lets you. It's just that simple. Every time I play, I always deal 4 damage in the first 2 turns. Easy. It's because my opponent lets me. Like, my opponent is not trying to stop my attacks. They could, but at the same time, they will lose some card advantage to do so, which I understand. But that's the whole point. Because comboing is not beneficial, right? You're literally giving up cards to try not to take a hit, aka not gain a card. That's why people let you deal them the first 4 damage, because that's a +4 for them. You're giving them 4 free cards, so they're going to take it. Plus, at the same time, every time they draw, they're going to charge a card, so they're always negging. Hey, what's up, man? They're always negging a card in that regards. Then there's the so they're never really getting anything from their draw because they always have to charge a card. That's if they're charging an energy every turn. They're not gaining anything. So the first 4 turns, they're not plusing from drawing from their deck. So that's why they rely on you dealing them 4 damage for them to replace those 4 cards that they put into their energy. That way the hand side is still, that way they have a playable hand. That's the whole point of that. That's the game theory for that, by the way. So there's that. Then, if their leader draws, which is amazing, right? If their leader draws on the swing, then that's 4 extra cards. So then that's 8 cards that replaces the first 4 cards. So taking 4 damage replaces the first 4 cards you charge as energy. Because after that, you more likely the game's not going to go past turn 4. But if it does, there's that, right? Then, but typically the first 4 turns, you're going to be taking hits. You don't want to take more than 1 damage per turn. So the first 4 turns, you're taking hits on purpose. Which is why I keep saying the first 4 energy, first 4 life is the easiest to do. Everybody tries to make it seem like it's complicated. It's like, no, the first 4 energies is using the easiest damage to do. You can do 4 damage on turn 1 or more, like I do in a lot of my aggro decks. So it's not that hard to do a lot of damage on turn 1 and turn 2, right? So again, your opponent's going to let you deal them 4 damage, at least a maximum of 4. You could potentially do more, but at least a maximum of 4. The next 2 damages after that requires some effort, right? Your opponent, because once your opponent, hits 4 life, which is half of their life, they're going to start trying to protect their life. And anytime after 2 energy, or anytime after 2 energy, it's going to be harder to deal damage because now your opponent can afford multiple negates and stuff, right? They can afford negates, they can afford counter plays, and so forth and so forth, right? So that's why turn 1, turn 2, is the sweet spot, as they say. It's the most optimal. It's the prime real estate for damage output because it's the time where you can deal the most damage with very little to no resistance. Is it possible for turn 1 people, drop a 1-drop blocker and use that blocker to stop you from double striking them on turn 1? Yeah, that is possible. But is it likely? Nah. Most people, especially if they're playing multicolor, they don't play nothing turn 1. So you get a free double strike on turn 1, which is why I play Champa Z Supreme Kai in multiples in my decks. It's been a while since I've had 4 copies of Champas and 4 copies of EC Supreme Kai. Ironically, I am going to be bringing that back just because it's tried and true, old reliable. Gotta start bringing that back. But the thing is, like I said, the first 4 damage is so easy to do. I don't need to, I don't need to double strike as soon as turn 1. I could just deal 1 damage a turn, and that'll be enough because, well, not 1 damage per turn, but like 1 damage turn 1 just for my leader, and then turn 2 swing with my leader and a battle card or maybe a unison. You know what I mean? Like I play a 2-drop unison, I swing with the unison and the leader. So every turn I'm adding an extra attack. So turn 1 damage, turn 2 damage, turn 3 damage, right? So when you add all that up, by the end of turn 3, that's essentially 6 damage. And that's basic. That's not even no advanced shit. That's no like my wombo combo stuff, that my X hit combo strategy where turn 1 I'm trying to deal you 6+ damage in turn 1 type stuff. That's obviously a combo strategy, right? But it's like I don't even have to do that. With any deck I play, turn 1 swing with the leader, deal 1 damage. Turn 2, unison and leader, deal 2 damage. Or maybe 1 if they decide to block, but typically they'll take 2. Because like I said, the first 4 damage, they're going to let you do it. So by turn 3, you might deal, you might get your opponent down to 4 or 3 life on turn 3. So a lot of times you can get them down to 2 on turn 3, but typically turn 4 is when you get them down to 2, and that's when you're trying to go for game, right? So that's why turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 are really important turns. And since I understand that, I've mastered that aspect of the importance of turn 1 and turn 2, and then turn 3 and 4, being I consider that late game. Turn 1, turn 2, that's early game. Turn 3 and turn 4, that's late game. That's the way I classify it. And then there's going past turn 4, that's 5 and 6. That's very late game. That's shit went wrong if you went that far. But like I said, the first 4 damage is the easiest. The next 2 requires some effort. The last 2 is the hardest. For the past 3 years I've been playing this game. Yes, the last 2 damage is the hardest. And the funny thing is, the last 2 damage is the determining factor if your win rate is higher or lower. That's the irony. Think about it. 2 life is the determining factor if your win ratio is higher than your loss ratio, right? So once you master dealing with the last 2 damage, when I build my decks and I come up with ideas and strategies, that's why my decks look the way they look. The way they look is because it's focused on that detail. That the last 2 damage is the hardest. The last 2 damage, I have to have a strategy to deal with the last 2 life. I don't need a strategy for the first 4 life. My opponent's giving me that for free. That's free. That's free damage right there. The first 4 damage is free. The next 2 requires a little bit of effort, but it's not that hard to do. You can sneak in a double strike real quick and get that 2. It's the last 2 that's the hardest. Your opponent's going to do everything they can not to let you take away the last 2 of their life. And that's why. That's when the battle really begins. That's when you're really battling your opponent. It's when they have 2 life and they're going to do everything they can to protect it. So that's where you're supposed to build your deck. You're supposed to build your deck to take away the last 2 life, which is why I went from my old way of playing, which is obviously deal 6 damage and then double strike my opponent for game. Since it's hard because my opponent's going to do everything they can, blockers, out super combos, out combo me, right? Negates, right? Now they're creating more negates, so there's more free negates out there. They're going to counterplay. There's so many things out here in the game that your opponent can use to try to stop you from winning with an attack. There's you got to find some alternative way of winning, which is why I pivoted over to burn, which I've been waiting for them to add to the game since set 1. I mean, yes, set 1 they did have burn, but I mean more generic, more easier to use type burn, and I definitely got a lot of it, so I'm definitely content with a lot of the burn cards that Bandai has given us. A lot of the burn cards have certain conditions that need to be met, and stuff like that, but it's it's fair. I don't want it to be too easy, right? I want to earn, right? Earn the burn, right? I want to earn it, so that kind of stuff. But man, Bandai gave me some really good toys. Woo wee! And I remember saying that in a post, Bandai, you're making it too easy. I did want some more burn cards, preferably more generic, so that way I can, make a whole bunch of decks and incorporate these different burns. If anyone pay attention, a lot of my decks, if you really look closely, I have a burn card somewhere in a deck. I make a green deck. I have the Super Saiyan 3 Yugioh Unison. Can't remember the name right now, but it's a 2-drop Unison. It gets revenge. Like, you get 2 markers, and it gives revenge to all your green mono green cards. But its -7 ability lets you pretty much crit one of your opponent's life and then make them discard 3 cards from the hand, which doesn't matter because if they only have 1 life and you crit that 1 life, you win, right? So it doesn't matter if you discard 3 cards from the hand. But it's decent if you crit somebody, right, for 1 life. They still have 1 life left. You take 3 cards out of their hand. That means their hand should be smaller. Hopefully your hand is bigger. So when you attack and combo your hand off, it should not be able to out-combo you, right? It should be, or at least should be harder. So you can take advantage of that. But the ultimate goal is to get your opponent down to 1 and then just play the Unison and just finish them off. So that's one way in green to burn. Another way would be Android 21, a Bad Omen. Charge your turn 1 as energy, and then from there on, you just play the game, get your opponent down to 1, and then just be like, all right, pay 4, 2 blue, 2 green from my energy area. Play here from my energy area. Burn my opponent for game. Bang. And the list goes on. I'm not going to go through all the burn cards, but you get the idea. It's like every color has certain cards that can burn, at least for 1 damage. There's some cards that can burn for 2. Lightning Fast Hit is a set 1 card that can burn for 2 if you evolve into him, but his evolve costs 5. He's a 6-drop, so that's the thing. But it's not impossible. There is a card that they gave us, Transcending Space, hit Transcending Space or something like that. Space-Time Transcending Hit or something like that, and he lets you evolve from your warp or drop area. Ironically, it costs 6 energy because 3 to play the battle card, and 3 to trigger its active main in order to evolve. So, but hey, if you have the 6 energy, it works. So can't argue with them results, right? If you got the 6 energy, then it works. You just gotta get your opponent, like I said, first 4 is easy. Next 2 requires a little effort, so it's not that hard to get your opponent down to 2. A lot of times your opponent already makes himself go down to 2. So then you can take advantage of it. Here's another detail. Not just your opponent lets you attack them, deal damage. They also activate effects that causes them to take a life. Add, leaders with quote unquote what they call self-awakening effects. Like, oh, I'll take a life to activate an effect of the leader. There's battle cards that have the effect of taking a life to activate an effect. So a lot of times I definitely take advantage of that. Like, my opponent is already making it easy by taking a life. They're already taking life for me, so it's like, okay, you're already taking a life for me. So once you get down to 2, whatever I have in my deck, whatever strategy I have to take away the last 2 damage, the last 2 life, that's my whole focus. That's my whole game plan. I've been in a scenario where I went up against a deck that literally the way the deck worked, it reduces its own life down to a 1 on its own. I was like, man, definitely love that matchup. When I don't even have to try to get you down to 1, you're going to do that yourself. I'm going to take advantage of that and play a card that burns you for 1 in game. You know what I mean? So like I said, it's about mastering the game. So that's where I'm at. My evolution of my playstyle of how I play the game is that, I understand the game itself. The most basic aspects of the game is the most important. The advanced, quote unquote, advanced part of the game is all the extra shit, the shiny cards and all the, the counterplays and the quote unquote skill intensive strategies and all this other stuff that a lot of people like to do. It's like, but none of that is necessary at all. Y'all doing the most, as the youngsters say. Y'all doing the most. Y'all doing way more than is necessary. The reason why I can crack out so many deck profiles is because I have a basic template that generically works. Since set 1 all the way up to now, the concept still remains. The first 4 damage is the easiest. The next 2 requires a little bit of effort, and the last 2 is the hardest. So have a strategy, have a game plan. End game, as they say. Have an end game, and then you're good. So that's why it's so funny to hear people thinking like, "Oh man, the game is getting complicated, hard. The game is too fast," or some other shit. Or currently the meta is slower now than it used to be, and all this extra stuff. Like, nothing really changed. Y'all just convince yourself that things changed. Nothing's changed. The first 4 life is still the easiest. The next 2 requires a little bit of effort, and the last 2 is the hardest. Nothing's changed. And the whole goal of this game is to deal 8 damage. That's it. Deal 8 damage, win the game, and move on. People will complicate shit for no reason. I mean, I know the reason, and I'm going to say it real quick, is they want to feel special. They want bragging rights. They want to brag that they earned something. It's like, you earned dealing 8 damage, really? like how hard was it for you to do that? Because I literally would watch matches and be annoyed on the fact that they're on turn 5 and both players have like 4 life. I'm like, how though? And I was watching the match, and I see a lot of the bad plays they were doing. These are so-called professionals, right? They're at these events and stuff, right? Playing competitively. And I'm like, man, y'all terrible. And that's a fact. That's my viewpoint. It's like I'd be bored as fuck watching these matches because of like how poorly they don't try to win the game. They're more focused on what their opponent is might do, and then try to beat it. It's like you're really focusing on countering, or like using gas-hitting Trunks or charismatic villain Frieza or something of that nature to stop them from playing a certain card. Like, I gotta stop that battle card. Why don't you just beat them? Deal them 8 damage and that's it. Game over. Why are you wasting time trying to stop them from playing the game? Those people like side deck and main deck and right, certain cards to help them against certain matchups. It's like, but if you just beat them, like, I got these cards for when I go up against Dark Broly, but it's not necessary. Dark Broly, the way the deck operates, it has very little combo power. It barely combos, so that means you don't have to worry about attacking, right? And getting them out comboing, because more likely they're not going to, which means they're going to be taking damage. And like I said, the first 4 is the easiest. The next 2 requires a little effort, and the last 2 is the hardest. And from my experience, every time I go against Dark Broly, it ain't that hard to get them down to 2 life. A lot of times they get down to 2 life, and I didn't even do much of anything. I barely attack, and they're down to 2 life. Why? Because they take their own life in order to trigger their leader's effect. Their own leader is their weakness, among other things. And I double strike the shit out of them, right? And take advantage of that, right? So I don't want them to use their leader's effect to, every turn, without it being not a problem, right? Because the whole goal is to get them down to the danger zone, right? Which is essentially 2 life, 2 or 1, even 1 better. Because there's more burn cards that deal 1 damage than there are cards that deal 2 damage. Oh man, it'd be crazy once they create a burn card that does 3 damage. Right now we have 1 card that does 4, and that's the 10-drop Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta Frenzied Burst or something like that. That's my bull right there. Wakanda Forever, right? It's my bull. Love him. 4. He does 4. Like I said, the first 4 is the easiest. Your opponent literally gives you that 4 damage. You're going up against King Piccolo. They have 6 life. So it's not that hard for you to take the first 4. Every time I played against King Piccolo, bang. Turn 2, they're already at 2 life. Turn 2, they're already at 2 life. What does that say? That this game is easy. It's not complicated. Or maybe it's just easy for me and it's hard for everybody else. Woo! Yeah, I said it. Because it literally is. That's my experience. I always get people that life down to 2. It ain't that difficult. I've been doing this for years. This is nothing new to me, but like I said, I keep seeing other people play, and it's like, man, y'all not really. Y'all not really playing. Y'all supposed to be, competitive, right? The pros, the best of the best. but y'all do worse than me, right? As in, like, y'all take longer to do damage than I do. And I do it without effort. Like I said, the first 4 is the easiest. Your opponent's giving you that for free. Yet y'all be on turn 3, 4, 5, 6, and your opponent still got like 7 life or something. Or some ridiculous shit. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? Are you even playing the game? How your opponent still has that much life and you're already on turn 5? Like, that's bullshit. That means y'all wasting your first 2, 3 turns doing nothing. What the hell were you doing? I'm trying to set up my deck's combo, deck strategy, which seems like it's to lose because it's definitely not to win. If the first 3 turns you ain't doing shit. I understand the first 3 turns you don't do damage with Hatch yet because that's literally how the deck works, right? Unless you're dropping like a 1-drop Unison or 1-drop battle card to, or at least, dropping a battle card or something to attack with every turn. That could potentially deal damage because the leader doesn't swing for the first 3 turns. So that I understand, but every other leader can attack turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. So no way should you be on turn 5 and your opponent still has 7 life. Does that mean you only attack with your leader once? And that was on turn 1, and after that you never attacked or something? Like, what's going on? So anyway, off of that rant, the point is that the game is not complicated. It's relatively simple. And the way I play is to keep the game as simple as possible. I try not to get influenced by the way other players like to play, like how the whole idea of like, oh, this is a control format, or this is an aggro format, this is a mid-range format, or some shit like that. It's like, nah, this game, regardless of all these different things, this added to the game and whatnot, the fact still remains. Your goal is to deal 8 damage. Your goal is to beat the game, not your opponent, not their deck, not a battle card, not a Unison, not a leader. Like, Jesus. It's to deal 8 damage. Beat the game. That's what I do. I focus on beating the game. Which is why I transition from, like I said before, dealing the last 2 damage through attacks to burning for the last 2 damage. Or 1 damage. Or 1 life. If I get my opponent down to 1 life. Shit, recently, I've been playing on Untap, and a lot of times my opponent will literally bring themselves down to 1 life, and it's like, okay, life is getting easy for me now, right? Because now I don't have to get my opponent down to 1 life through efforts, right? Through playing the game, through out strategizing, out playing my opponent. People are literally allowing themselves to get down to 1 life. So, thank you. Keep taking yourself down to 1 life. Make the game easier for me, and I'll just burn you for 1. Which is why if you look at my decks, I always have a card like, oh, this card, burn, burn, burn. A lot of my deck profiles say burn in the name of the deck. The reason why is because that's an important factor. That is the most common way you're going to consistently win. Because the way the game in general is, the way people play the game, a lot of the popular leaders tend to be the leaders that self-awaken. You mean the losing leaders, the self-kill leaders, the self-harm leaders, whatever term I'm trying to come up with. You get my point. It's like, the auto-win leaders. There you go. The auto-win leaders, the leaders that make it easy for me to win because you're taking your own life, so I don't have to. Yeah, thank you. Good luck. Good looking on that. That's why it's so funny that some of the newer leaders had the condition that when you awaken, you take life. You can literally have 8 life and meet a certain condition to awaken, but the leader says, oh, also take life until you have 5 life left or something, or 4 life left or something like that. Like, that's hilarious. You had all this life, now you have to take it and add it to your hand. Like, that's funny. Like, your life being in your life area is a cushion. It's a timer. It's a buffer. It lets you stay in the game longer, right? But you are willing to take it and add it to your hand because you want it in your hand so much. But then the irony, like I said before, you combo it off, and it was a waste. You literally wasted a card you could have played, or you charged it as energy. The fact that it's not in your life no more, so you don't have it there no more. You don't have life right there no more. You have less life than you had before. Like, that shit cracks me up. And like, I understand card advantage. I understand wanting to have a lot of cards in your hands to play, but that's why you should have leaders and battle cards and unisons and extra cards, things that help you draw. You should have cards in your deck that helps you draw, preferably an engine, so that way you can always guarantee you can replenish your hands every turn. But don't take literally your own life and try to add it as card advantage, as a resource. Hey, to each their own. You want to debate me, you want to disagree, not debate me, because I don't care what you think. But if you want to, disagree and be like, no, I gotta have card advantage. It's awesome to take a life and whatever. Then you do you. You do you. I'm not telling you not to do that, because clearly it makes it easy for me to win if you do that. So keep taking your quote unquote card advantage from your life, because I'm gonna help you get more advantage. I remember Joey Palladino trying to argue with me about the idea of a super combo, and the example he used, which was weird, because it's like the example he uses, like, my opponent has a bigger hand than me, right? So wouldn't I want to use super combo so that way I can try to out combo per se? It's like, but I combo what if they have? The thing is, for me, is that my opponent has more cards than me. Me playing super combos are relevant because, I play a card, get a card, from the draw effect, right? That's nice and all, but if they have more cards than me, they're more likely going to out combo me anyway. There's no guarantee that if I use a super combo, 1 or 2 or 3, that they can't out combo, because what if they have super combos? They're going to out combo me anyway. So then it's pointless, right? So for me, I'd rather have a scenario where I reduce the cards in the hands, right? And one of my, I forgot exactly what I said, but it was the idea that's like, I prefer, instead of me adding more cards to my hands, I prefer to reduce my opponent's hand size. Because the idea was, my argument was that if my opponent has more cards in their hands than me, then I was playing the game wrong. If they have more cards than me, I was playing the game wrong. The way it should be is that every time I deal them damage, I put them in a position where the cards they add from their life to their hand, or even drawing from their leader, or even drawing from their deck, at some point I should have forced them to combo off those cards. So that way their hands are not that big. If their hands are big, it's because I wasn't playing the game right. I allowed them to have a bigger hand size than me. So again, super combos are irrelevant because it doesn't counter the fact that my opponent has a big hand size. I'm not going to get out of that, bad situation. My opponent having 30 cards in the hands. I only have 5 cards in my hands, and 4 of them are super combos. That's not going to change shit. They have 30 cards in hands. I fucked up, right? I played the game wrong, and they won because I let them have 30 freaking cards, right? So that's why it was so funny to try to debate the whole super combo. Was like, yeah, so you're not selling me on the idea and the importance of super. The super combo does not negate the fact that they have a whole bunch of cards in their hands. It'd be different. It would be epic. A super combo that would be, I would definitely put in every deck. That'd be fucking amazing. There's a super combo that literally says, when you combo with this card, your opponent can't combo. Imagine that. A super combo that doesn't let your opponent combo during that battle. That guarantees that any attack you do can't be out combo. Wouldn't that be amazing? But of course, that's not going to exist because that's fucking broken. But see my point? It's like, that's the only time I'll be like, yeah, gotta have 4 of these super combos in every deck. Like, if it had that type of ability, but it doesn't. I mean, it'd be interesting if they made a super combo that states your opponent can only combo from their battle area, or can only combo up to 2 cards from their hand during this attack, or something like that. That'd be interesting to see if they'll try to experiment with that type of idea. But logically, no. Again, that's why I use Supreme Kai and Champa, because they give me 10k, just like a super combo can give me 10k combo power. but they give me double strike, which if I use it right, especially on turn 1, it's more important. Because again, I'm trying to, by turn 4, get my opponent down to 2 life or 1, and then finish them off and win the game. That is my goal. That's what I do when I play, is try to do that, unless I'm playing like a mill strategy. Then, of course, damage to my opponent's life is irrelevant. But 9 out of 10, I'm winning through damage to my opponent's life. You know, either through an attack or burn, whichever one turns out. So because of that, since that's the main focus, right? That's why double striking is very important. Like Champa is way more important. Super combo is irrelevant turn 1, irrelevant turn 2. But Champa and Isekai are always relevant turn 1, turn 2. That's when they're the most relevant. Because after that, it's going to be hard to Champa or Isekai harder. I wish it was easier. One of the ways you could easily use Champa and Isekai late game, like turn 4, for example, would be a Mirror Creator Absorb or something similar. Something that that the attack can't be out comboed, for example, or the attack's just so high, again, can't be out comboed, or what else? That's just the one thing. It's like an attack that your opponent can't out combo because the attack is very high, or there's an effect that doesn't let your opponent combo at all. So therefore, they can't combo in that situation, right? Stuff like that. So so that's the only time it's easy to use double strike, like Champa, Isekai, for example, to go for game when you're in that type of situation where you can guarantee your opponent can't out combo. It's not too hard to attack and your opponent doesn't block, and your opponent doesn't negate. That's not difficult, right? But combo, that is the whole thing. When it comes to comboing, if you don't guarantee that your attack cannot be out comboed, it's more likely you're going to get out comboed. That's just a given. One way you can guarantee your besides your attack being high or having an effect that prevents your opponent from comboing, you have to put the third one, because there actually is a third one. I was only thinking 2, but I forgot. There's a third one. Obviously, if your opponent has no cards in the hands or field to be able to combo, to even try to out combo, right? Technically, there could be a fourth. You can say, maybe the leader has an effect that can KO a battle card, that has double strike or something like that, and that's a way, your opponent can prevent losing from the attack. So there's at least 4 I can think of right now. Ways that the fourth one is something they could do to stop. But if you make sure you have like barrier or something like that, then they can't stop. So that's the idea. But you get the point. It's like you gotta that requires some effort right there, right? To make sure that your attack is too high to out combo, or you have some type of effect that just prevents combo in general. Or reduces your opponent's combo power. Like there's a battle card that it's like an ultimate that has that effect that minus 5k combo power and power from all battle cards, leaders, and all this extra shit. It's like what's his name? So it's a Broly card. So you get the idea. It's like oh, that's pretty badass. Minusing combo power, so you turn super combos into 0-cost 5ks, 0-cost 5ks into 0 combo power cards. So that's pretty badass. And there's some cards that have the ability to battle cards that have the ability to let you send cards that were combo from the combo area, so you can empty out, or combo killer effects that we like to call it. So you can do the combo killer thing. So there's stuff like that to consider. So again, it's very specific. But this is why I'm like, yeah. I need something a little bit simpler. So I was like, okay, so what I'm gonna do, what was the other thing I was gonna say? Be able to output so many attacks that your opponent can't out combo all of them. So that's the other thing. That's the just going wide strategy. If you can go wide late game, then it'll be hard for your opponent to out combo all your attacks, right? So that's another way. So there's going tall. There you go. Going tall is one way to to be able to pretty much guarantee you can go for game, or combo killing, right? Or just make it where your opponent just can't combo at all, and going wide. So that way it makes it that they can't stop everything through comboing, negates, and blah, 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 and blockers and stuff. So going wide. So going tall, going wide, and just saying no, right? Killing combos, countering whenever they try to do something, like maybe activating effects that negate, that prevents comboing, whatever, or just gives you a power boost, that kind of stuff. So those are like 3 different ways to look at it. But then there's just burn. It's like, I'd rather go the burn route. I'd rather get your life points low enough that I could just be like, I play this card and I win. I'd rather be in that scenario. I play, I win. As opposed to, I play, I attack. Oh, you have a negate? Darn. You know what I mean? Okay, now I'll overwhelm. Play this card for free. Any response? No, I attack. Oh, you don't have a negate? Good. I combo these cards. The best I can do is 35k, and then my opponent combos are like 40k. Like, damn it. They had the one extra 5k that I didn't have. Shit. You know what I mean? Right? That one 5k, that's the whole point about the whole combo thing. Just one 5k. They just need one 5k more than you in order to out combo. And if they use super combo, yeah, that makes it easier for them to reach those types of numbers, to be 5k stronger than your final, than your attack, right? That's why it's like, yeah, I'm pivoting to burn. I use, double striking, damage, putting out multiple attackers, free play, all that good stuff. I use all that early game, and then late game, just focus on burn, or, get into a position where my opponent has a small hand size, and I can just, probably win with a leader and a unison swing, and that'd be enough. Let's see, what else? Most of my strategies are mainly aggro, because like I said, it's about winning the game. It's not about, playing with your opponent. Some people like the idea of being able to play with their opponent. They want to be able to have a back and forth. It's like, I'm not against it per se. Like I like natural back and forth, where my opponent, is actually putting in work, and the back and forth, the battle we're having is like, it's epic, because it's like we're really going back and forth, like we're really trying to beat each other, and that's what makes, and none of us yield, right? None of us lost yet. We're still going back and forth. We're chipping at each other's life slowly. Like we're throwing 3 to 4 attacks a turn, but we're only doing 1 damage each turn. It's like that's an epic battle. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want it where I'm letting my opponent, do things and stuff like that. It's like, I don't want to make it easy for my opponent. I want it to be hard. I want to win as much as anyone else. So I'm not going to make the game easy for my opponent. I'm going to make it hard. I'm going to make it complicated. If I can, but on average, I tend to kind of play the game a little bit somewhat solitary. I remember a long time ago someone pointed that out, that like I assume the way I play is that I assume that my opponent's not going to do things. Like they're not going to block or negate or out combo or whatever. It's like, no, I take into account that my opponent is going to do that. But I know from my experience, and it has been, and for the past 3 years since the game came out up to now, time again, when I've actually played people in real life and online, and even saw gameplay, like seeing other people play, in tournaments and, at their locals or at home or webcam events or whatever, however way they played, or they played on tap and I was watching, footage. The point is that I've seen and have experienced my own, me playing the game enough that I'm like, yeah, again, the first 4, life is usually the easiest to deal, because both players are letting the other person deal them the damage. Most people don't stop a leader swing on turn 1. both players, technically, if you think about it, we actually start playing the game at 7 life, technically. Right? I go first, play an energy, end my turn. My opponent goes, plays an energy, swing with their leader. I take the hit, bang. I'm already at 7. My turn. I draw, play an energy. Might play a unison or something on turn 2. Swing with my leader. They take the hit, bang. Now they're at 7. I swing with my unison. Maybe they'll block, maybe they'll take it. Let's say they take it. Alright, cool. Now they're at 6. Think about it. Like, it's that basic. And it has been like that, like I said, for 3 years. You know, like the idea of like just chipping away at each other, you know, the first 4 damage, relatively easy in the first 2 to 3 turns. Because ain't nobody really trying to do much of anything turn 1, turn 2 anyway. It's usually turn 3 and up is where a lot of the real plays are made. It's not too different from Magic, you know. I mean, Magic's relatively the same way. The difference is Magic has summoning sickness, and you don't have a leader to swing with, so you don't have a dedicated attacker, aka leader, in Magic. So turn 1 you play a 1-drop and end your turn, or you play nothing in turn 1. You know, turn 2 you might play a 2-drop creature, but still you can't attack. So you gotta wait to turn 3 to attack. So not much happens until like turn 3, turn 4, and beyond, right? And since this game is similar, yeah, but because there is no summoning sickness, you know, the sooner you get something out, the sooner you can attack, right? So that's the only difference between this and Magic. Is the sooner you get something out, the sooner you can start attacking, and you already start off with the leader. So you, in the first 4 turns, first turn of the game, you should be able to deal 4 damage. It shouldn't be that hard. But it's ironic how I see a lot of other people make it harder to do than reality. Usually because they're using their leaders wrong, or they're using certain cards wrong, or they're not playing enough Champas or E-Supreme cards like I do to guarantee that, you know, every time they swing with the leader, it's like, oh, you don't block the leader, Champa? Oh, you're gonna take it? Good. That's what I like to hear. You taking 2 damage. You know, like, that's the thing. That's the difference between how I play and how everybody else plays. You know, it's a numbers game. I'm trying to deal 8 damage. That's all I'm worried about. Everybody's worried about a lot of other things that they shouldn't be. Like, there's a lot of decks that I've played against that a lot of people like complain, like, oh man, this deck does this deck does that, like, this deck is so hard, it's the best deck in the format, all this extra stuff. I'm like, really? I played against those decks. I didn't see none of that. The deck didn't seem, you know, difficult to play against. Particularly, it didn't feel that defensive, as well as most of these decks didn't feel that defensive. It just felt like I could just swing on my leader every turn and guarantee damage. So I wasn't feeling any type of resistance, you know, like, because I expect a quote unquote best deck in the format to their offense and their defense to be top tier. I shouldn't be playing the best deck in the format, and it's like every time I attack, my attacks are going through. I'm like, okay, my attacks are going through relatively easy. This doesn't seem right. Why is this deck not defending, right? And then when it does try to go off, right, it's like, oh, cool, you know, it does have a big epic, going off strategy, right? The clapback, as they say, right? But sometimes it's a little lackluster. I'm like, wait, that's what this is the deck's best strategy? This is their strongest play? Was this? This was what this deck is based off of, this one basic ass play? I'm not impressed. I've done better with less. You know what I mean? So, stuff like that. I definitely get a little annoyed seeing red decks that are slow. I'm like, how? So many free play cards, burn cards, like, so, you know, like, so much you can do, you know, for free or for little cost in red. There's no way the deck should be slow. I shouldn't be hearing nothing about no mid range or control red, like something, you know, something a little ridiculous, or like red ramp or some type of bullshit. I'm like, why though? It's red. It should. The main thing of red is that it should be aggro. It should just be trying to win the game as quickly as possible, not play no little patty cake, no little footsies, right? No little back and forth, no little tug of war with your opponent. Aggro should just come in there and knock you out with one punch. That's why I like the fact that they have Jiren in the color red. It's like, it should be one punch. That's the way aggro red or aggro strategy should be. It should be like One Punch Man, right? One turn kill. That's what I expect to see from red. You know, that's why it's weird to see people trying to make red slower on purpose. Like, no, red's supposed to be fast. Make sure it stays fast. Blue is very defensive. Supposed to be very defensive. Out of all the colors, blue is supposed to be the most defensive color. But I see people trying to disrespect blue, act like blue don't have defense. Some people try to say blue don't have anti-barrier hate. Like they don't have barrier hate cards. Like, are you kidding me? They have tons of barrier hate cards. There's way more barrier hate cards in blue than I've seen, at least, in other colors. I use a lot of blue barrier hate, like blue cards that ignore barrier. That's blue. You know, so it's surprising for people to say that, you know, there isn't. And I use a lot of blue defensive cards, a lot of counter attacks, you know, battle cards that negate attacks. And then to hear that the deck's not defensive enough, I'm like, kidding me? Then we got a lot of blue blocker unisons. Again, further proving that blue is very defensive, yet people still claim that blue ain't that good, ain't that defensive. It can't defend against, you know, aggro decks and blah blah blah. Like, are you kidding me? Blue is the most defensive color, therefore it can block and defend better against red than most any other color, because blue is the most defensive. Like, what the hell are you talking? So some people just tend to they talk just to talk. And it's sad when people give opinions and not facts. When I talk about something, I'm saying facts. I just explained why blue is defensive. It's not my opinion that blue is defensive. No, I stated facts why it's defensive. I stated the name of cards that prove that the color is very defensive. And there's tons of other cards. You know, there's a lot of, you know, there's even one drop blue floodgate negates, right? And cards that have the ability to kind of floodgate. Senzu Bean, for example, right? You can use that defensively, right? That's a free 5k combo for the duration of the turn right there. You know, I've survived turns with it, so that shows that it's a very defensive card. So the whole and I survived against aggro strategy with Senzu Bean. So to be like, oh, blue's not defensive, F you, I don't know where you got that bullshit from. That's an opinion. That's not a fact. Blue is very defensive. I don't know where you got that bullshit from. Just like if somebody in the near future talks about red ain't aggro, like what? Try to say something else is more aggro than red, like F out of here. Red is aggro. Where the hell you get that nonsense from? And the list goes on and on of stuff that I hear out there that be bullshit. And it's from people who have bigger following, have more, you know, more people who listen to them and literally listen to this BS, you know, listening to shit that don't even make sense. Like, there's people out there that have a bigger audience than me, literally telling them that, oh man, the game is hard and difficult, and well, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And the reason why they're doing this is because they're trying to promote the idea that you need to play the most expensive cards in the game. You need to spend a lot of money to be quote unquote good, because this lets them justify how much they spend on playing the game, and it makes them look more, you know, quote unquote awesome and skillful in this and that because of that, because they're playing these very expensive cards. And if they convince everybody else that that's what makes you a great player, is to play $100 cards, you know, $200 cards and stuff like that. It's like, I use Baby Hatchet as an example. He sells them as a better example because it's a win con. But Baby Hatchet, you know, one of my faves, that definitely can't wait until it gets free print so I can get me a copy. So I can stop using the proxy. But, you know, it's a really good card. You know, but do you really need it? No, not necessarily. Not at all. You could have, you know, I don't own one. I have a proxy, of course, but I don't own one, and I play blue a lot. I play red more than blue, but I play blue a lot, and it's, you know, it doesn't doesn't, I can play blue without Baby Hatchet. But some people will try to promote the idea that's like, nah, you gotta have it. It's like, no, you gotta have, what is that? Is it a $400, $500 card right now or something like that? Like, you don't need $400 or $500 in your deck. Like, it's not that deep. It's a great card, don't get me wrong. But you can play the game without it. It is not a must-have. It's a awesome to have, but it's not a must-have. It's like, it's awesome to have super combos if it's useful, but you don't have to have super combos. You know what I mean? Well, this went long enough. Gave you an hour. So you see the evolution of my playstyle of why I, don't play super combos, by default. I do use them, just not by default. Why a lot of my decks look the same, why I got burned in pretty much all my decks, because that's one of the main ways I plan to win is through burn. Unless I'm playing a mill strategy, then obviously milling is the win con, but on average, burn is the win con that I'm heavily focused on, and everything else is just icing on the cake. So if you see like a triple strike in my deck, it's just there as a possible win con, not a definite win con. It's just there as a option. Sometimes it'll be the reason why I can set up my real win con, which is which is burn. So burn is my real win con. It's what I rely on to win, and it's nice that every color does have it. Because let's say if only red had burn and every other color didn't, then the only deck profiles you will ever see from me will just be red. Because it'd be pointless to make decks that don't have burn, right? And that's the main way that I try to win. Main way that I can at least build you a deck that can create a deck that can win, because that's the whole idea, right? That's another thing. My decks are designed to win, whether you believe it or not. They are. They're designed to win. Like I said, first 4 damage is the easiest, so the deck could be trashed, and it wouldn't matter because the first 4 damage is the easiest to do to your opponent. The next 2 require a little bit of effort, but you can just get that through some random double strike. Something in your deck will have double strike, or you'll have the ability to give something double strike, or you have dual attack and attack twice and deal that 2 damage and get your opponent down to 2 life. Or your opponent will take the life themselves, right? They'll activate some effect which will make them take a life, and they'll be down to 2 life on their own. So you don't have to do much of anything, because at some point in the game your opponent's going to be down to 2 life. The thing is, are you ready to take advantage? Do you have some way of taking advantage of that? And I make sure that in every deck that I build, that there is a way to try to take advantage of it. You just got to succeed in that thing. I have some videos where, you see that I do lose the match, but if you pay attention, right, if you look at what was going on in the match, you will see that I was just 1 turn away from winning, because all I had to do was get to that turn 5. Let's say it was turn 5 or even turn 4. It's like I just had to get to that turn, play that 1 card that's clearly in my hand, and I would have just win. So I lost, yes, but I had the ability to win, which shows, yes, the deck can win. And I've proven it that, yes, all my decks can easily get my opponent down to 2 life or 1, and I have cards in the deck that once you play them, once you actually get to use them, you'll win. So my decks are designed to win. Whether you can successfully do it consistently or not, it's irrelevant, right? Because that's subjective. You do or you don't, right? You either do win or you don't win. That happens, right? You win some, you lose some, as they say. I can only do but so much. I can only, build a deck to give you the ability to win. I can't guarantee you a victory, because that's up to you. You still matter. I hate a lot of people like to act like winning and losing is determined by their deck or luck or dice roll. They always try to not blame themselves for why they lost. When they win, they definitely take credit, right? But when they lose, they never give themselves credit for that. They always want to blame their deck or their opponent or something else, or the tournament or the time, or somebody sneezed and you got distracted. Like, people are always willing to always want credit but never want to take responsibility, right? Ain't that ironic? So it's like, I'll build a deck that's designed to win, but if somebody doesn't win, then they'll blame me for it. They'll be like, oh, your deck is trash. You're a trash player that built this deck, blah, blah, blah. Like, wow, you're going to blame me instead of yourself. Because if I play the deck and win, what does that say? That says more about you than it does about me. It proves that you were trash. And no matter how good the deck is, you being trash is the reason you lost. It wasn't the deck. It was you. Vice versa. Because let's pretend the deck is trash. Alright? Let's pretend the deck ain't that good. Alright? Are you good? Are you good enough to win even with a deck that's trash? Because if you can win with a deck that's trash, and if people, believe that my decks are trash, but if you're a really good player, you should be able to win with my decks regardless. If you're really that good. If you can't win with my decks, again, that's you. That has nothing to do with deck. I already explained that the first 4 damage is the easiest because your opponent always lets you have that. That's too easy. Just keep swinging with your leader and you should be able to deal 4 damage easily. So if you can't do 4 damage with any of my decks, again, that's on you. That's not the deck. No way you cannot deal 4 damage at all with any deck, including mine. You literally start off with a leader. That's a guaranteed attack. Even if my deck was full of 5-drops, if all the battle cards in my deck were 5-drops, you should still be able to do 4 damage. That makes me want to make a 5-drop deck. But anyway, you should still be able to do 4 damage because you start off with a leader. So every turn you should be swinging. Every turn you should be able to deal damage. So no way you can't at least do 4 damage with any of my decks. No way. And again, like I said, the next 2 requires a little bit of effort. So if you put in some effort, you play some cards, and you play them right, you should be able to do those 2 damages. So you should be able to do 6, right? And the last 2 is just, hey, can you finish your opponent off? Is there cards in the deck that can help you win the deck? Is there a burn effect? Is there a double strike? Is there a finisher? Is there, like, for example, is there an Android 17 turning the tide in the deck? Is there, an ultimate that they can burn for 2, or some type of, catastrophic blow or something, where you could just pay 5, play catastrophic blow, and just deal 1 damage to your opponent. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there a way to win the game in the deck? If the answer is yes, then it's up to you to make all that work. If you can't make it work, that's a you problem. That is not the deck or me problem. That's just a you problem. I already have videos showcasing that my decks work, showcasing what I can do. I've shown off. I've shown what I what I can do with some of my my best decks. The decks that I prefer to play because they're based off of the way I like to play. So I've already shown off, how much I can spam. But I've shown even without trying how easy my decks can do damage. I had duels where I easily won. Like, it was like I barely did anything and I easily won. Like, and I actually expected that I was going to lose, just because it's like, it's possible if my opponent tries to not lose, then I should win. I mean, if they try not to lose, I shouldn't win. So that was a factor. There was there was one time where I was like, what, I just attack, just to attack, and accept that I'll probably lose next turn. So I expected my opponent to combo the attack, and then they didn't, and I won. I'm like, so you didn't have enough cards in your hands to out combo the attack? Oh, okay. That can happen. You know what I mean? Again, I was barely doing anything, just playing the game in the most basic way. And fortunate for me, I attacked and my opponent couldn't have a combo and I won. So, okay, see, that can happen. That is a possibility. So the game is not that hard if I can win even without trying. And that's the end of this podcast.